Hello, Elise Pickett here with the Urban Harvest, and today I am going to talk to you about powdery mildew, what it is and how to get rid of it in your vegetable garden. Florida vegetable gardening comes with a lot of benefits. We can go year-round, which most of the country isn't able to do, and we're able to grow in the winter, which a lot of areas in the country also can't do without a lot of input. But with our warm climates and our heat and humidity, we do have a host of other issues that pop up in a Florida vegetable garden. One that is very common here is called powdery mildew. Powdery mildew is a fungal disease, and it's identified by a white or gray kind of film that starts to coat the leaves. Typically the older leaves or the ones that are further down on the plants. But once established or out of control, it can cover even the fresh new leaves, the stalks, flowers, and fruit. So what causes powdery mildew? It could be a number of factors or a combination of factors. One of the easiest to identify is sunlight. If you are working in a situation where you have a partly shaded bed, say for leafy greens, or if you have some beds and maybe the position or angle of the sun changed with the seasons. So in spring through fall, it gets plenty of sun, but maybe in winter, it dips a little bit lower and the beds just aren't getting quite enough sun. That could be a factor because sun does kill off the spores when it's exposed to the leaves for an extended period of time. I do have a video that goes in depth on sunlight in your Florida vegetable garden, what it actually needs versus what the standard is in the rest of the country. So if you want to learn more about sunlight needs for your Florida vegetable garden, make sure to check that video out. One of the other factors that can affect powdery mildew in your garden is the density of your plants. Now, I am a huge proponent for maximizing space in your garden, and I absolutely plant quite densely compared to most. But with that does create an environment that's favorable for powdery mildew. So just keeping that in mind, when the plants are able to brush shoulders, it reduces airflow, which will create a favorable environment. And two, the plants then come in contact with each other. So if one plant gets powdery mildew, it's easily transferred from plant to plant. The other thing to consider is mulching and debris in the garden. So it's quite easy, say you didn't have time to get out in the garden and there's some yellowing leaves that drop off and fall into and around the plants. While it may seem like that's kind of a natural mulching method, if there were spores on those leaves that dropped, it's being left in the environments and that can potentially spread to the other plants. So removing any of those loose leaves or dead debris and mulch that are in and around the garden can help reduce the likelihood of powdery mildew in your vegetable garden. In my case, and what I think caused the powdery mildew in my garden this time, is actually top watering. So I haven't had time to set up my drip irrigation system yet. That will be coming soon, and I will have a video out on that. I know watering can be an overwhelming topic at times, but I have been watering from the top down with an oscillating sprinkler. And when that happens, we are creating a very moist environment all over the plants and leaves, so powdery mildew is a lot more likely. Ideally, we would have some sort of either hand watering method where you're using a hand sprinkler or something like that, focusing on the soil only and not the rest of the plants, or you're using some sort of drip irrigation or soaker hose. but that's not always an option for all of us. So if you don't have the drip irrigation system set up in your garden and you're looking for a watering method that works for our Florida vegetable gardens, I do have a video out on the deep water method. So if you want to learn more about that, check out that link up there. If you do have to water from the top down, one way to reduce the likelihood of powdery mildew in the garden is to do so early in the morning. It allows the plants to dry out during the day so that they're not sitting with water on the leaves overnight. And by doing so, it does reduce the likelihood of powdery mildew. In general, plants that are stressed are more susceptible to fungal and pest issues. They're a cold weather crop and it's starting to warm up, or vice versa, or if there's a lack of nutrients or drought-like conditions, any of these stressors set yourself up to see more pest and fungal issues in your vegetable garden. Mustard greens prefer cooler weather, and since we had those few warm spells, they were a little bit stressed between that and the top watering that I'm doing right now. I think it was just enough to tip them over the edge. You'll notice that it starts on the older leaves as white or gray spots, and it will eventually coat the entire leaf. The newer growth towards the center and the younger leaves are less likely to have it, so they'll still have that nice, shiny, brilliant color, while the rest of the plant has that dull, powdery sheen or coating on it. Luckily, powdery mildew is transferred by air, bugs, or water, and it is not harbored in the soil. So with just a little bit of treatment and then watching for leaves falling and such afterwards, it is rather easy to control powdery mildew. There are a ton of different, very affordable home remedies out there, but they all have their pros and cons. Either a vinegar or baking soda wash are quite popular, but I don't like to use those if I can help it because they can burn the plants if they're not applied at the right time or if they're applied in too high of strength. Two other remedies that you will often see are copper or sulfur. Both of those can be detrimental to the soil health, which is a really important component to sustainable and organic vegetable gardening. And they can technically be unsafe for humans as well if it's inhaled. So I typically avoid those methods. A very strong garlic oil application can be very, very effective at controlling powdery mildew. I do have a hot pepper garlic spray that I'll apply as a preventative pest management spray, but to get it in the high enough concentrations to affect powdery mildew, it can be quite a process. So I typically don't use that method, although it is very effective. You hear a lot about neem oil, and I absolutely do use it, but I use it as a last resort. It is a way to control pests and fungal issues, which is kind of nice, but it affects the hormones in the insects, and although technically it's said to be safe for beneficial insects and only harms the pest in your garden, I just don't see how that works. So I try to only use neem if it's absolutely necessary, and typically not for a fungal issue since there are so many other effective treatments for fungal issues. So neem is typically reserved more for last resort pest management, at least for my personal garden choices. My preferred method for controlling powdery mildew in the vegetable garden is actually milk. It sounds weird, but there are a lot of studies out there. They're not exactly sure how it works, but they have proven that it is an effective treatment method. Within 24 hours of using a milk water mixture on your leaves, the powdery mildew will be gone. So pretty much everybody already has milk in the fridge, and if you don't, you can always use powdered milk or just go buy a quart for $1 as opposed to going and having to buy any sort of copper or sulfur or neem oil, which can be an added expense. So the gist of a milk-water mixture is approximately a 50-50 mix of milk to water. Some people say to do a 40% mixture of milk to 60% water. I think that's fine as well. I just like to keep things nice and simple. 50-50 works for me. So basically all you're going to do is add the milk and add the water in whatever quantity you need to cover your affected plants, and shake it up in a spray bottle. Then you're going to squirt or spritz the leaves that are visibly affected, as well as nearby plants that come into close contact with the affected plants. You do want to make sure that you do the tops and bottoms of leaves. That's pretty standard for any sort of pest or fungal applications. Ideally, this would be applied in very early morning or late in the afternoon after the heat of the day, just in case you don't want to stress the plants out. But that being said, milk is generally quite safe to use and will not burn your plants like the vinegar and baking soda can. You may ask yourself the question, is powdery mildew safe to consume? And the answer is yes. I would definitely give it a really good thorough washing in the sink before eating it, but it is non-toxic to humans and pets. It's not like a black mold or anything like that, which can cause very serious health issues. So it is safe to consume powdery mildew. But that being said, most treatments are effective and will very quickly reduce or eliminate the powdery mildew in your garden. So if you can, wait 24 hours after treating the powdery mildew, and you will likely have no signs or symptoms of the leaves being infected. But that being said, if you're ready to harvest and eat your crops from the garden, just give them a good wash before you eat them and you'll be good to go. I hope you found this video helpful on powdery mildew in your Florida vegetable garden. It is something that we definitely deal with on a fairly regular basis, but lucky for us, it is easy to manage, treat, and eliminate from your garden. If you found this video helpful, make sure to head on down and give it a thumbs up, and while you're down there, the subscribe button, so you're alerted every time a new video comes out on Florida-based vegetable gardening. Have a great day.